Greetings and welcome back to CS195 Web Development. This is week 9 DOM modification. We are on creating elements from scratch. So again, the elements don't even exist in HTML, and we're going to make it so that they just appear. We'll go over different places. A lot of the times you just stick it at the end of the body, but the concept is you are creating them in JavaScript from scratch. So our objective is to understand exactly how this works, how to add an element to the DOM. And then the success criteria is you can explain and describe why an element would need to be created from scratch. All right, so don't need to be super familiar with this, but understand why it could be useful in order to do so. So we'll watch the con video real quick and then we'll try it out.
Okay, so far we've been modifying a lot of existing elements on the page. But what if we want to add new elements to the page? We could do that with inner HTML, writing the HTML for the tags inside the string that we pass in, like we did here. That can get a bit messy though, especially if we want to create multiple tags with different attributes, styles, and classes. So instead, we can use a whole suite of document methods for creating new elements from scratch and adding them to the page. Let's say that we want to add an image of a cat to the page because we just don't think it has enough yet. The first step is to create that new image element, right? We want to create that. So we'll start off by creating a variable to store it, cat_l, and then we're going to use document.createElement and pass in the name of the tag we're making, img. So now you can imagine that the browser has made an image tag like this, and it's floating off in space somewhere. The next step is to assign a source to it. So cat_l.src equals, and let's just grab our source from up here. And oh, we should add an alt to make this image more accessible. We haven't been doing that, and really should always have alt tags on our images. So now you can imagine that this image tag that we've made has a source, and it also has an alt, photo of a cute cat. Okay.
And again, like she's saying, this right here, it just exists off in nothing, right? It exists off in the DOM. You will not see this anywhere in the HTML code yet, right? It hasn't actually been placed. This is what it looks like, but it's just kind of sitting here in this variable right here. It's just sitting there as you're adding and adding to it, adding each piece to it. It's just sitting there waiting to be actually added.
So this is what we've made using this JavaScript here. The image tag that we made is still floating off in space because we haven't told the browser where to put it, and there's so many different places in our DOM where it could go. Let's do the easiest thing and just make it show up at the bottom of the page. We can do that by sticking it at the end of the body tag. So we say document.body.appendChild cat_l. Haha, there it is. It's quite large as well. Very large cat, scary. Now, you can call appendChild on any existing DOM node in your page, and it will make the passed-in element the final child of that node.
And if you just, especially if you're using like position or something, remember position just kind of pulls it out of everything and puts it wherever you tell it to put it. A lot of the times it's okay just to add it to the body, right? Because you're going to reposition it. So a lot of times you see those pop-ups come up in the middle of the screen. Those are normally something like this. You just add it to the body, and then you're going to use position to position it just in the center on top of everything. It doesn't really matter where it is, as opposed to hiding and showing. This is probably a great example where you would just create it when you need to, pop it up, and then get rid of it. But a lot of the times, you might want to add it maybe right here into this position right here, or again, if you're adding a link, maybe you want to turn this in, add a link right here based on something. Again, you can add it to that actual piece. It also works well if you're going to make games or anything like that, where you click on this, and every time you click on it, it creates a new object for you to shoot, or again, maybe just it creates the object in a certain spot. All of the things over here get created over here inside of this div. So that's a great example of how you can create it wherever you need it, when you need it to. So
This is where it helps to really visualize the DOM as a tree. The body tag is a node in that tree, and it has a bunch of children like H1 and P, and you're adding one more child at the end of its children. So actually it'd be after the script tag, right here. Using DOM methods, you should theoretically be able to append elements anywhere inside the DOM tree. We just put it in the easiest, most obvious spot. Okay, let's do one more example. We used inner HTML down here to put strong tags inside the spans. Instead, we could use create element. So var strong L equals document dot create element strong, and I misspelled it, and spelling very important. So that creates an empty strong tag floating off in space. So first thing we'll do is set the text of it. So strong L dot text content equals cat. All right. Alternatively, actually, we could do this other thing where we create what's known as a text node. Many DOM nodes in the DOM tree can have special types of nodes, text nodes, as their children. And these nodes aren't elements, but they are still nodes in the DOM tree. We actually call them leaf nodes because they're the very final thing that can be in a tree. So var strong text equals document dot create text node, and we'll just pass in the text cat. If we use this technique, we've now created two nodes that are floating off in space. A strong tag, and then this text node, which just says cat. And we need to connect them up to each other. And we want the strong to be the parent of cat. So what we'll do is say strong L dot append child strong text. Okay.
So this is an example of, now she actually created this one and then added this to it, and I've done this before when you needed to recreate something. And you get able to find an element that you want, you recreate it, you put elements inside of it. But it's a great example of just adding it to another one that already exists. So she could have just selected a strong tag, and then appended the child to that strong tag. But in this case, she created the strong tag and now is going to append it to it. There are cases where you need this. It just, you got to think about times where you create a whole new element for this. So these are really interactive JavaScripts.
Now we've got the strong with cat inside. And we have to append it where we want because it's still floating off in space. So we are inside the for loop for name L's, and each name L is where we want to append the strong tag. So here, name L's I dot append child strong L.
And remember, she had just created this, as she was just mentioning, with these two pieces. She created a strong tag, and she appended cat inside of it. So she created this, so when she's doing this, it's pretty much doing the same thing.
Aha. And now, actually, we see it twice because I left in the old way. So it's appending to a span tag that already has a strong in it. We could change this line to inner HTML equals empty string, which will effectively clear out the span before we append to it. Now, as you saw, that took way more lines of code than the inner HTML version. So, why did we do it? Well, a lot of developers don't like modifying the document this way because it does take a lot more code. Most developers actually use libraries like jQuery to do DOM modification for them, which provides functions that does the same code with a lot less lines of code for you as the developer because you're using the library functions instead. I do kind of like writing my code this way because I like that I can see exactly how I'm modifying the DOM tree one line at a time, and it feels cleaner than shoving everything into a string of inner HTML. But maybe you hate it. Either way, now you know it exists, so you can use it if you need it. And
All right, so again, with this, it's just a tool in your toolkit that you can use. There are times eventually that you'll run into it, so I want you to remember that it's there, and then you can come back and Google exactly how do I do it, or come back and watch this video. And you might want to watch that video a couple times. It's not super easy to add an element to the DOM. So we're going to go ahead and do it together real quick. And again, we're just going to add something to the end, right? We're going to add an image to the end of this. So let's go ahead. Var new image, right? And L, because it's an element. And then we're going to create it, right? So document, because we need to still talk to the document, create element. So we're not searching for one, we're creating it right now, right? We're creating it, and then we have to tell it what it is. So instead of pointing to a location or whatever, like we normally are used to, get element by ID, whatever else we might be working on, we're actually creating it. So we're telling it it's going to be an image tag. So we just created an image tag. Now we need to give it a source. So I'm going to copy this because we're going to use it a few times. Oops, that didn't tab over. So I want to copy this twice because the source is down there. But remember, just like you would change a source, you do the same concept with that, right? src equals. So even though it had no source, we can still use exactly the same word. If this was document get element by ID and we got this picture, we wanted to change the source, it's the exact same concept as that. And then equal or dot alt, right? Alt is an attribute equals quotes. And I'll just put new pic for now. And then I already have a image, so I'm just going to copy that down here. There's an image down there for me, so I don't have to go search for it. Paste it, but if you want to pause, come back and say search for it. All right, we have the full element, right? It's going to be as she had, right? We haven't added height and width. We could add height and width. We could either do that by style, or since height and width are attributes, we could literally just do dot height dot width. But it's going to be at the end of the body, so we're just going to show up right down here. So tab 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 document dot body dot append child, and then copy this one more time since the image is copied right now. Paste it in there, semicolon, and then we got good, we got risk of awesome, and then we got the book of even more awesome. All right, so we've added this to it by creating it, and then we added the source, created the alt, and then we actually appended it. This is where it actually adds it to it. So that's it. If you want to use this to create things, it is a very useful command. I don't use it all the time, but there are instances where you want to just create a whole section of the web page, and it's a great way to do so. So another tutorial on this, again, because it is useful, but it is complicated. Do your con challenge, do your journal entry, and we'll see you next lesson.